A very good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here because everything I study, whether it is data centers, whether it is pharma, doing clinical trials, whether it is manufacturing, power is required everywhere. And I'm going to start with a very historical chart, which is interesting for you because I'm showing you what happened from 1800 till 2023. From first commercial oil well dug in US to gas vehicles when people started buying cars. It took 10 years. 1900 is when automotive started. In about 10 years, most everybody in the United States was driving a car. To China's industrialization boom. The reason I put all of these milestones is because every milestone drove a significant power increase. All the way till when, solar prices started falling by 80%. First 100 megawatt solar project in US. And we started studying which country started investing in what area. So we studied the whole value chain. We studied the bill of materials of all kinds of power generation, whether it is, coal and mining, whether it is oil, whether it is nuclear, whether it is hydro. We started studying all of it to realize this is where we are in the world map, where still renewable is a very small component. I may also tell you that our plan for India for 500 gigawatt of renewable by 2030 was made in 2021. Just for your information, I want to tell you, in 2021, NVIDIA's market cap was 350 billion. 2021, we planned 500 gigawatt renewable for 2030, and at that point of time, NVIDIA's market cap was 350. May I tell you now, I don't have to tell you, it's over 4 trillion. Orders of magnitude increase, which tells me, I come from a technology background. I'm confident that when we planned the 500 gigawatt renewable, we did not plan the revolution that is coming with AI and what AI-enabled technologies, all of the requirements. I was just talking to one of our EIB, MDB leaders. I am looking at undersea cable as an infrastructure because that's what is going to be required for data centers, in addition to a lot of power and cooling. So I just want to tell you, this is what history has in store. But 2030, you will see many bumps, and I will show you many milestones like so to say that this is why power requirement increased much more than what we had planned for. I also have plotted, the top producers, which countries, you can see that. But this is just to show you that greatest periods of wealth creations were the ones where power was being defined to be increased exponentially. I also want to show you what is the global clean energy target. When I look at the renewable energy, target for the globe, 2023 it was 3.5 terawatt, went to 5.1 in 2026, will be in 2026. But if we want to keep to our 1.5 degrees Celsius Paris Agreement, we have to be more than 9,000 gigawatt, 9 terawatt. So we have a gap of at least 2x for the world. I also want to tell you, just over 1 year, simply 1 year, the world generated about 540-ish gigawatt of power, of which 92% was renewable. Assume all of it was renewable. 500 gigawatt was renewable. So what the world generated in 1 year, we have to generate in the next few years by 2030. And my gut is saying that add another 20-30% of power, because when I look at renewable, I always put a V in front of the RE because it's a variable renewable power because the energy is subject to the CUF. And as, I was hearing your presentation, I really loved what you are looking at in terms of grid modification. I personally feel, since I come from a technology background, I can tell you what the networking industry did in 5G is what we have to do in power, in grid, in building the software, driving the optimization, reducing the congestion. Only then our one grid for one country will be useful. Because when I look at, so many curtailments, so many of, transition delays, and I don't want to take states' names, but we have 120 gigawatt of solar capacity, but unfortunately, only 80 gigawatt will have the ability to connect to the grid. So 40 gigawatt is lost. So we have to look at, grid plus interconnection innovation. And I'm really happy to, hear, Santoshji, that you talked about a lot of innovation, that, we are trying a lot of technology adoption. Storage. In general, if you look at the rule of thumb, I said renewable is always, think of it as VRE. 20% of the power you generate should be the one that you plan for your battery, for the storage system. So if we are looking at, 50 gigawatt increase each year, I have to plan 10 gigawatt of storage. And that is where, we have to put a lot of invention, innovation, and even political alliances. It's no longer just, trade related. I really feel that a lot of political diplomacy will be required when we look at building such kind of, battery requirements. Manufacturing and supply chain. Very recently I was for a vacation in US, met my children, and I met a professor who teaches at Wharton. He says, innovation is more often driven by suppliers than the product company itself. So when I'm looking at supply chain, from raw materials to components, power electronics, there needs to be innovation at every single level. And that's when we will see the power gigawatt into gigawatt hour transition being much better than what we are seeing, which is roughly half when I look at solar, wind, and hydro. Critical mineral dependency, I don't have to tell you, but critical minerals, rare earths, simple, lithium. When I really hear rare earths, it's really not rare. It's the extraction and the refinement. So lithium is very, very critical for us. Who are the countries we want to partner? And when I looked at, some of the strategies that we are building, there are countries outside of, one country that we can partner with and look at technology from some country, softwares from some country, and I'll show you in the next slide. But bottom line is, 2 trillion per year has been invested in this whole development. What we have to look at is upping to almost 3 trillion for the next few years if we need to meet the global target of greater than 9 terawatt for the renewable sector. What do I have now? A lot of policy requirements, a lot of gaps in terms of revenue generation, they are very important. But I also want to show you what are the technology friction areas for us to be able to meet the targets or beat the targets that we have. Let's look at the grid and distribution. Everywhere, from 1 to 5 is a technology that I have listed. And on the columns is basically what is the requirement for the value chain. So let's talk about grid and distribution. The largest friction area for this is all the development, the build-up that is required, which I call as hardware and scale. Similarly, if you look at system integration, when I look at solar, it is basically looking at not just generation, but reaching for the consumption. And in that, there's distribution, there's transmission, there is loss, all of that, there's interstate, all of those requirements have to be met. and therefore system integration very important. I also feel operations is important. There's so much variability that we have to look at a new business model, and our industries also have to accept what the new ways of revenue generation. They have to look at what are the ways revenues and values can be created in such kind of an environment. So countries have to make certain changes. Similarly, storage. I have storage orange all through. Every single area we have to look at, and I like to say 20% is the target we are looking at, and if 500 gigawatt is the renewable, of which, a lot of it is solar and wind, 20% is the battery capacity we have to plan for. And I honestly believe for the older generation of technology, I want to partner with countries and get the technologies from them. I do not want to work on the older technology. The newer generation technology is where I want to put my R&D efforts. So all of the budget, the ANRF, the research and development investments, we have to find countries, companies that are leading in developing what are those technologies, and I want to partner on R&D with them, and then look at technology transfer enablement of older generation technology to meet our current needs. Similarly, clean molecules, green hydrogen, very, very critical. Ammonia, looking at e-fuels, and what are the cost is prohibitive. So you can look at every technology that is critical for us, and what are the friction points that we have to look at. So in this case, for clean molecules, which is needed for hard-to-abate sectors, for cement and steel and others, and cost is kind of prohibitive, and we are working. What I really like in terms of green hydrogen, what the government has done, we are already very affordable in terms of green hydrogen. Critical minerals, I believe recycling is so important. I learned that every phone has 1 gram of rare earth, every car has 1.5 kilograms, and apparently, if we are able to recycle all of it, 15 to 20% of our needs can be met through recycling. I mean, that's the kind of technology and innovation that, we should be looking at. Here, hardware and scale is critical because the equipments required, the technology required is going to be prohibitive. So within the 3 trillion that the world needs, we have taken a stab as to where what kind of investment is needed. In terms of storage, I have to point out, all of this investment has been highly concentrated in just few countries. So what are some of the takeaways? I do not want solar capacity to be having a queue. We have to figure out ways where we are, soon as a solar capacity is ready, it is ready to be served into the grid. Standardized interconnection to make it simpler, digital approvals, not having to wait. We actually study state versus state versus state, and we've seen states that are trying partly digital, ways of approval are the ones where delay is much less. Flexibility, enabling revenues, scale pilots for clean molecules because cost is prohibitive here. So many of those things we believe need to be done to address some of the friction points that I talked about. And the takeaway I would say is cross-sector de-risking is imperative. Scale, execution is what is most important in this area. Very quickly, I told you about the globe. I told you about the global challenges. India challenges are no different. I've highlighted some of the states that, Rajasthan, to name one, is struggling a lot. I have called out, how much total renewables we have today. And over the year, last year, how much we increased. I think 30 gigawatt of 40 total renewable, of which 30-ish is solar. We have to increase significant amount. Total addition was 44. We have to up it to 50 to 60 to meet the needs that we currently have planned. And imagine the NVIDIA moment, it's going to add 30% more to our power requirement. Overall, if you look at the demand, today it's 1.5 terawatt, projection is 2x, and I can show you where industrial and commercial is going to be, I think there is a mistake in the units. One important thing is when I look at where is the electricity demand coming from? By the way, our electricity per capita is 1/10 of United States. And it's 1/10 because the penetration of air conditioners, the penetration of laptops, the penetration of automotives is much less than 10%. So if we have aspirations to have 500 million households to have air conditioners, where it is less than 3%, 4%, we need significant amount of power. And renewable is what we are looking at. I want to talk about grid acceleration, storage, localization, financing. Somewhat I have talked. I want to spend a little more time in what are the gaps and who are the countries, not just countries and companies. See, I come from Invest India. My role is proactively chase the company who meets our strategic needs. So giving you a high-level view of here are the gaps is not sufficient for me. So what we did is, I looked at who are the critical companies and countries we have to partner with. So when I look at United States, I have to look at grid software. I told you, like the 5G orchestrator, I have to have a orchestration within our grid management. Storage, power electronics, very, very critical. Few of the companies that we are going to be partnering with are so listed here. European Union, offshore winds, electrolyzers. Already we have facilitated investment in these areas and a lot of manufacturing partnerships. If I look at Japan and Korea, batteries, inverters, high voltage equipments for EV, quality supply, these are the companies. Hyosung, our team just landed. Air Liquide, we landed. We are working with Fluence and GE Vernova, etc. So our goal is identify the gaps. Australia and LATAM, very, very critical for diplomacy in the space of minerals and critical elements. Offtake is important. We can drive a lot of development, refinement, but unless we have an offtake, it is not going to be viable for a company. So blended finance, early on public investment to protect the early on risk is very, very critical. Gulf and MDBs, we believe that blended finance and de-risking the early part of our development is going to be very critical. So really important to look at the entire, not just solar, not just the solar cell, and not just very fancy photovoltaic and all of the. You have to look at the entire ecosystem, because where it is generated to where it is consumed, unless the whole thing is optimized, I'm not going to get the value. So what we did is, we are looking at partnerships, we are looking at collaborations. So we built a 3-year roadmap, and I'm happy that Secretary MNRE has already talked about few of them. So we looked at 2026, we have to unlock the grid throughput. A lot of optimization for the grid has to happen. And this is going to be a federal plus the state effort joint, because like I said, the maximum usage of power could be Maharashtra and maximum generation could be Rajasthan. So unless we have cross-state optimization and federal and state working together, this unlocking of grid is going to be incomplete. And I've talked about, what are some of the areas in terms of technologies that we could look at. The other simple thing was hybrid tenders, where we look at storage plus renewable, always have the 20% storage, part of it. 2027, scale the storage. Manufacturing is going to take some time to build that relationship, to build the partnership, and get into the scaling of storage and manufacturing. Drive a lot of pilots, build mineral, offtake contacts, have our automotive guys partner with our companies to be able to build those permanent magnets. And then industrial decarbonization. Green hydrogen, we have made a lot of effort, and I'm really happy a lot of companies are working towards. But again, anchor offtake. I think fertilizer companies are the ones. Shipping will be the others. Clean heat pilots. I think if our country has to double up the economy, steel and cement is going to be very critical. Lastly, carbon contracts for differences. Those are the kind of things that we believe over the next 3 years we can do. But what does this need? This needs investor-ready projects. It needs manufacturing, finance, and offtake capacity and certainty, and policy advocacy and de-risking mechanisms. So countries, companies, government have to jointly work to address some of this. And we believe that we can look at accelerating Atmanirbhar, Green and Viksit Bharat through partnership with the Council for International Economic Understanding, Dalberg, and Invest India, and build opportunities that drive investments, technology transfers, R&D, and enable this as a backbone between government, companies, consumers, investors, and manufacturers. So this is what my whole slide, I wanted to share. Our partners will be built based on, what is the critical vantage point they are offering us. Are they going to enable us with deep energy value chain connectivity, proven investment and facilitation, and convening power? Unless we look at all of this for our partners, I don't believe that, we will be able to reach the goals that we are reaching or planning. And therefore, this is what we're going to look for every partner. And therefore, some of the companies that I shared with you, we'll be working with. Thank you very, very much.